What's up, everybody? Welcome back into Tide Talk Live, the special Saturday morning edition of the show. This is something we're going to try to do throughout the college football season, each and every Saturday morning before
If our internet
kickoff.
allows it.
Yeah, if our internet allows it. So y'all be patient with us today. It seems like our internet provider is crap the bed on us. So we'll do our best to get through the show. So just be patient with us on that. Jake, it's a beautiful Saturday morning here in North Alabama. Hope you're doing well, buddy. What's going on?
Man, just glad to be on tonight or today. If I'm used to saying not because it seems like we do everything at night, but this is a beautiful Saturday morning here in North Alabama. It's starting to get a little sticky, but other than that, I'm glad to be on. The chat is popping. Ronnie, Lil Joe C, Bob, thank you all for joining this morning. And once football season rolls around, we'll be back every Saturday morning for a preview. For just get you excited and amped up for the game. So this is not a one-time thing. This is going to be going on for the football season. So we're excited. Thank you all for joining. Stacey, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm great. Yeah, like you said, this is kind of a trial run for what we plan to do each Saturday morning during the college football season. And if you're just joining, we mentioned at the beginning, just be patient with us today. Both of our internet is just it's hit or miss for us right now. So be patient with us if we go out. We'll do our best to make it through the show. We're going to get to the live chat, really periodically throughout the show. We're going to mainly be focused on Q&As towards the end of the program. We're going to be looking at just a couple of quick hitters before we get to those Q&As. But as the people continue to file in through the show, we appreciate everybody joining. Good morning, Tristan. Thank you for joining the show. Yeah, that's one thing that we could talk about. Cassidy's here, Ronnie. Just thank you guys for joining the show.
Thank you.
It is fan day in Tuscaloosa, so I'm not going to go down there. It's too hot for me right now to go down there, and plus I got a sick kid that I'm having to stay home with. But yeah, fan day in Tuscaloosa today. Be fun to get down there and see what the team looks like in person. Glad that fan day is back for those who want to go down there and check that out. So if you're going to fan day, let us know. We'd love to kind of give you a shout out there. Jake, the college football season is right around the corner, and they had practice on Thursday. You can't take a ton from it, obviously, because it's just one practice. We only get bits and pieces, through pictures and through like a 3 or 4 minute video that the team released. But one picture that caught my eye right away was that of Terrence Ferguson taking first team reps, right there by Seth McLaughlin at left guard. And obviously it's just one picture, but from everything that we've gathered from people we know, it looks like Terrence Ferguson and Darrian Dalcourt are going to be splitting reps with first team left guard. I think that's huge. I'll be honest with you. I think we're the only show that really talked about that this summer, the possibility of Terrence Ferguson, winning that starting left guard role there. All the talk this summer has been about Caden Proctor, and rightfully so. But we were about the only show who was adamant that TJ Ferguson is not a guy to forget about when it comes to, maybe possibly earning a starting spot along that offensive line. Just what's your thoughts on that right now, just a couple days into fall camp?
Yeah, I sent you a text, I believe, yesterday, and I asked you about it, and you pretty much confirmed, because when I first saw that picture, I mean, it was a zoomed in up picture, pretty much showing Seth, and I was like, okay, well, we know Seth's there. And then I got to look, and I was like, that's not Dalcourt beside him. And I was I was like, okay, you could see the 9, but you barely could see the 6. I was like, okay, so I went to the main roster online. I was like, okay, there's a 9. I said that almost does look like a 6. So I was like, that is Terrence Ferguson. So I was like, okay, I'm interested in this because like we have said all summer, we're not making light of the situation. It's just facts that the left side of that offensive line is the weakest in the link right now. So that is Dalcourt, and that is Elijah Pritchett. Now it looks like Pritchett, he's going to be the left tackle. It looks like Caden Proctor may make a run later in fall camp, but right now we're going to stick with he's going to be the left tackle game 1. But that left guard position looks like it's up for grabs, and Dalcourt's got serious, competition because, like you said, Stacy, Terrence Ferguson, he's been down there a couple years, and he's a really solid player. Some of the limited time that he has seen in action, and I feel like he would be an upgrade over Dalcourt, and I'll say that in the most respectful way. We talked about we really like Dalcourt, the way he has handled himself at Alabama and just being a true leader and cog and on that offensive line for several years. But an upgrade, anybody honestly been an upgrade over him, just to be blunt about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we've talked about Terrence Ferguson all summer long. He come in as a part of the 2021 class, a highly rated 4-star recruit from the state of Georgia. And at that point in time, that's before Coach Wolford arrived in Tuscaloosa. We were recruiting a little bit different style of offensive lineman, and he was really a part of that style as far as he was only around 290 pounds when he arrived on campus. He's up to, 318, almost 320 now, so he's put on nearly 30 pounds in 2.5 seasons in Tuscaloosa. But even though he was a little on the slight side when he arrived on campus, he was a very physical player and kind of that nasty type player that me and you talk about a lot on this show, Jake. So he really fits the mold of what Eric Wolford wants to do on the offensive line. So I think what TJ is doing is either he's going to win the job or he's going to push Dalcourt to be better. And if that, and whatever happens. And it could be a scenario where it's a lot like last season where we saw 3 guys playing the 2 guard spots. We had Javion Cohen and Emil Ekiyor, and then we brought in Tyler Booker. So it could be a scenario where Terrence Ferguson is that 3rd guard, and we just kind of play musical guards there on the Alabama offensive line. And you brought up Caden Proctor and the fact that, right now it's still Elijah Pritchett. It's still so early on, Jake, in the process here in fall camp. Right. I'm not going to rule him out, but I'm also not going to count out Elijah Pritchett as being capable of taking that next step and becoming an elite offensive tackle for Alabama. So like Tristan said there in the comments, I want the 5 best players plus some added depth on that offensive line. I think that's what we're going to get this fall. I really believe in what Coach Wolford is doing, and I really trust the process that he and Coach Saban are going through to put the 5 best players out there. Whether you have to kind of rotate guys in or out to get the 5 best guys out there, I'm with it because I trust what they're doing with the offensive line in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, Stacy. And, one thing that you have seen, no matter who the offensive line coach is, but it's really been a Saban style down there, is you have 5 or 6 offensive linemen that can step up and play because use packages, especially goal line packages that have an extra tackle or an extra guard in. We've seen, Randolph has been that guy the last couple of seasons. So you need somebody, you need 5 or 6, 7 guys, not only for injury purposes, but for a goal line package that has a 6, offensive guard or tackle in the game.
Yeah, no doubt. There's so many options that the Alabama has right now, and although you look at what Alabama has on the right side, Jake.
Oh
man, I mean, I don't know if there's a better right side in college football between Tyler Booker and J.C. Latham. I mean, that is, you talk about a dynamic duo. And then you add what Seth McLaughlin is there at center, Jake, a guy who's maybe not the most talented guy, maybe not the most athletically gifted, but, a lot like what Alabama has always been at center when they have good offensive line is the dude just gets the job done. I mean, he does all the little things right. He gets everybody the right calls. He gets everybody blocking the right guy, and he just does his job. So from Seth over to J.C. Latham on the right side, that is that is as elite as it gets in college football. So excited to see what they do over there. They're going to be running behind that right side early and often when the season rolls around.
Yeah, Booker and Latham both are big maulers. So, if they clear a path for whoever the running back's going to be, Jace, Richard Young, Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, Wardell Williams. I mean, you got so many running backs that can run the ball great, but it all starts at the offensive line. They've got to create holes. And that right side, man, they are going to create holes this year because, JC and Tyler both have been adamant this off season about getting back to that more physical style. in the trenches. And if there's anybody who's going to do that, it's going to be those two guys, and it's just going to carry over to the other players on the offensive line. So, those two got to be the leaders on the offensive line. And if somebody's not doing their job, they need to call them out. The leadership is what we've kind of been lacking, and an outspoken leader. Had a lot of unspoken leaders, I would call it, just sit back and quiet and lead on the field. But you got to have somebody getting in the ears of players, and we hadn't had that in the last couple of years. You got to hold people accountable, and I feel like this team and this offensive line, they're all going to hold each other accountable.
Yeah, I like this group, and if even though there's still competition at certain spots, I think it could still be a strength of the team this year. Because like you mentioned, when you talk about Tyler Booker and J.C. Latham, those are two guys who they fit they are the model of nasty when it comes to the way they play, the way they just continue to. They play up to the echo of the whistle. They don't play after the whistle, but they're in your face until that whistle blows, and they don't let up. I mean, it's all gas. So if they can show that type of leadership through example, and then like you mentioned, also have some vocal leadership as well, this offensive line could be really good and really kind of be the kind of be a good synopsis of what this team is, and kind of lead that team to what they can do. And it's going to start with those guys up front. It all starts up front, both offensively and defensively. So we need that unit on the offensive line to be solid if Alabama wants to accomplish the things they want to accomplish here in 2023.
Yeah, I agree, Stacey. Talking about being that leader, I really saw that Tyler Booker last year when they was coming out on the field for the Kansas State game. He was running around, and I forgot who he pushed, but he pushed whoever it was like 10 yards back, and I'm like, okay, he's going to be the igniter for the team next year. And I was really excited. I said the future's bright with him, for next year. But the future's bright overall because that offensive line, like we have said, Stacey, they are green, but there's a lot of talent there, and they can tap into that talent. They're going to be nasty for years because that's just what Eric Wolford wants. He wants the nastiness, and that's why Saban brought him in, is because we had to get a more physical style of offensive line, because the offensive line, like you said, Stacey, dictates how your team's going to play this year. The offensive line's mean and nasty, then your offense is going to be mean and nasty. But if they're soft and weak, it's going to be soft and weak. So we don't need that going into the season. You need guys who is going to step up, be nasty in the trenches, and that's just going to give you an identity on the offense.
Yep, it's all about creating that identity for your team, and like we mentioned, it starts with those guys up front on the offensive line. I got to look at the comments or the chat here. Skip says, "Name for your morning show: Crimson Cafe or Breakfast with the Tide." That's pretty good.
Yeah,
maybe we should kind of have a little competition to come up with a good name for us for our Saturday morning live.
I think we asked that on our last live. I think we
did
in the comment. Yeah, so
maybe we did.
Thank you, Skip.
Tristan says, I feel we in good hands. Everybody needs to trust the process. I want great health, leadership, and each got to develop plus compete. Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game, and that's football in a nutshell right there. It's just about competing, trusting in Coach Saban's process. And I think that goes for the fans too. As fans, we get a little carried away, and if a freshman comes in and he doesn't compete like we think he should, or earn a starting role like we think he should, we just kind of give up on that guy and move on to the next guy. And I think Elijah Pritchett is a prime example of that. I mean, everybody's talking about the new shiny toy in Caden Proctor, and I understand why. He was a 5-star for a reason. Right. He's shown a lot of promise, but dude, Elijah Pritchett was highly recruited too. And as a redshirt freshman, after being injured as a true freshman, he starts day one at left tackle in the spring.
That's incredible.
You know what that means? The coaching staff loves the guy.
Yeah.
So trust the process. Coach Saban, Coach Wolford, they're going to get the offensive line figured out. And I'm excited to see what they look like. Jake, in Coach Saban's, post-practice comments after the first practice on Thursday, he was asked about the inside linebackers, and he mentioned two names, Jake, and that's a position we've talked about all summer long about how important it is to get those guys right, but how we were confident in the four guys that are really kind of competing for those two spots, and really it's just one spot. because we really are confident that Deontay Lawson is going to be one of the starters. And, Deontay Lawson is a guy who, when healthy, has been a really good player for Alabama, especially last season as a redshirt freshman. But he also mentioned Jahad Campbell by name, and those are the only two names he mentioned when he was asked about the inside linebackers. Does that tell you anything? Do you feel like that's kind of a hint of what we might see when September 2nd rolls around?
It's Saban. He's just going to put as little as possible out there for the media because, like you said, it's 2 days in the fall camp, and Saban's never really talked about open, spots and battles. He's always been adamant he's going to play the best guys that he sees fit, and that's been true since he's been down there. So if Jahad Campbell is the guy that has shown the most promise at that other inside linebacker spot, then he's going to be the one on the field. But maybe somebody asked him who he thought, and he just gave two answers. We already know, like you said, Deontay Lawson, what he did last year when he's healthy. I don't see anybody taking his spot, but that other inside linebacker position is up for grabs, and there's like 6 players that it could go to. So I feel like, just personal opinion, I feel like Campbell would be the one early on to get the starting nod there. But like I said, there's a lot of competition and a lot of great talent there. So it's going to be an interesting fall camp to see who latches on to that position out, beside Lawson and takes it over.
Yeah, and obviously, like we mentioned, we've said all summer long we feel like Lawson will be, one of the starters at inside linebacker, and that other spot was really up for grabs. And you look at Jahad Campbell, he's a guy who was mainly an edge rusher in high school. He kind of made that transition to inside linebacker as a true freshman last season. So, now that he's had a year under his belt to learn the position, you kind of learn the nuances of what it means to be an inside linebacker in Alabama scheme. His athletic ability and his ability to rush the passer could be a real good, kind of a change up for Alabama this season, and he could really provide a different type of player than what we're used to seeing from that inside linebacker role, almost like a Rashaan Evans, where we saw him, line up in the off ball, early on in downs, and then maybe line up with his fingers in the dirt and rush the passer on third down. So he's got a lot of versatility. You look at Tresman Marshall, a guy who played as a freshman at Georgia. So now he's at Alabama. He just kind of lost his place there at Georgia due to a lot of injuries. But if you play as a freshman at Georgia, that means you can ball. So don't count out Tresman Marshall. He obviously knows the system, playing for Kirby Smart there at Georgia. Then you look at Justin Jefferson, a guy who just so athletic. His closing speed when he sees the play is it's elite, Jake. I mean, it's next level elite. He's a guy who maybe doesn't earn a lot of playing time in the early portion of the season, but by the time,
Oh, I think we lost Stacy. But anyway, yeah, just we was talking about inside linebackers. Stacy was giving his
October and us.
Bear with us, guys. Stacy's going in and out. So, look like we got him back. Sorry
about internet. That. Yeah, we mentioned at the start of the show how both of our internets have just been wonky lately.
Crap.
Mine has been every 10 minutes or so it just stops working, and so just bear with us. Sorry about that. Yeah. But yeah, I think between Jahad Campbell, Tresman Marshall, I lost his name for a minute, and Justin Jefferson. There's 3 guys vying for that one spot opposite of Deontay Lawson, and they're all really good players, and they all kind of bring a little bit something different. But I think Kevin Steele and Robert Balla will do a good job of kind of figuring out how to mix and match those guys to put the defense in the best position to be successful.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Stacy. There's a lot of talent at that inside linebacker position. Deontay Lawson's probably got his spot, secured, but you can take him out for a series or two just to keep him fresh and healthy for a late run in the season. But like we said, we have 6-7 guys you can go to. If Trez Marshall comes in and he could be, like you said, a guy to keep an eye on. He knows the system, being there at Georgia. Jefferson, we've both been high on since we saw him in A-Day. But Campbell as well, man. He come in, I think, last year as a freshman, and he looked really, really good. I think Blackshire, he's been on the team for a while. He could make a run for it. So there's a lot of talent there, and each one of them has their own unique style that, depending on the situation, you'll probably see out there. You'll probably see several different lineups for the situation that we're in at that point in the game. So just keep an eye on that. But I feel confident with the inside linebacker group that whoever it is, we're going to be fine.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. We're fixing to get to the Q&A portion of our show here in just a minute, but I do want to bring up real quickly Amari Jefferson, a 4-star receiver from Tennessee, is going to be making his commitment a little bit later this afternoon. I think he's going to end up picking Alabama, so a great addition there for the class. Of course, there's a couple other guys committing this weekend, KJ Bolden, Nathaniel Frazier. I don't think either one of those guys are going to pick Alabama, but those are two other commitments to watch. I think there's a chance that Bolden will either go to Georgia, Auburn, or Florida State, and I think it's really down between Alabama and Georgia for Nathaniel Frazier, the running back from Mater Dei High School out in California. But he's arguably the best back in this class. But I think he's going to pick Georgia simply because of the young talent that Alabama has in their backfield right now. I mean, they signed 2 guys in just the last class, so there's not going to be a lot of room for playing time early on in Tuscaloosa. And Georgia's got some guys that are going to be gone after this year. So I wouldn't be shocked if Frazier picked Alabama because he loves Alabama, but he's looking at the depth chart with both Alabama and Georgia. So right now I just kind of lean Georgia a little bit, but I do feel good about Jefferson, and he's a 2-sport athlete, a guy who's going to play baseball at Alabama too. I mean, he's an elite baseball player, an elite wide receiver, so he would be a great pickup for Alabama. Man,
you think about, talking about the future already, you got, the 2 wide receivers that we've already signed, Williams and French, and you add Amari Jefferson, you getting guys for Julian Say in a couple years that he's going to have targets galore to throw to. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this year's team, but the future is just still bright as ever. And that's what's so funny. Saban's highs and his retirement has been coming on for 10 years now, but I mean, he's still recruiting at a high level. He's losing it. He ain't lost his mind one bit because he's still recruiting at a high level. So, it's the dynasty isn't over, guys, and you can tell by these guys we're going after. Saban's still looking and wants to put the team in the future once he retires, still in a great position to win championships after he does retire.
Yeah, and now the new thing for his retirement is he's bought a home in Florida. So
an island home in Florida, Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. So yeah, keep an eye on that. He may announce retirement after this year. Okay. Yeah.
I think as long as Saban is healthy, he's going to coach.
Right.
I mean, he lives for competition.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's what makes up his DNA is competition. So I don't see him, calling it quits anytime soon, as long as his health allows it and he's of sound mind, and he's not going anywhere. I mean, that'd be absolutely shocked.
I have been adamant in saying Saban's not going to retire until Miss Terry tells him to, because from everything I've read and heard, she absolutely loves Tuscaloosa. So, and I have said, funnily, I've said from from time to time that she's the one that's actually coaching the football team. It's just Saban out there in the spotlight on the field, but she's the one that runs the show behind the scenes. So
that's in part true, but
yeah,
I know you say that jokingly, but yeah,
right.
she's she definitely I think she definitely calls the shot in the Saban household.
Yeah, for sure. Just like Cassie calls the shots in my house.
I think that's the case for most of us, if we're being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but great show. Thanks to all the comments so far, man.
Let's get to some Q&As. You know, we have a few minutes that we can discuss anything you want to talk about. For those watching the live show right now, jump in the live chat and drop your questions for us. We would love to kind of talk about anything and everything. The football season is right around the corner, Jake. Man, I cannot wait. September 2nd cannot get here soon enough. And there's so much to look at, Jake. This team is so interesting. I don't remember a team coming in with so many, and it's not even question marks. It's just so many open competitions at important positions. I mean, you look at the left side of the offensive line, you look at the inside linebacker, you look at some of the places in the secondary that are kind of up for grabs. And now you look, obviously, the quarterback situation, Jake. It's there's so many key position battles going on right now. So I can't wait. I cannot wait for the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched a video yesterday that I agree. I tend to agree with. It seemed like the last couple of years we got more Bryce focused instead of what was true Alabama form, and that was running it down people's throats for, like I saw a comment earlier, like Ronnie said, the old 13 plays, blood to your nose, 80-yard type drives, and that would probably run 7-8 minutes off the board, off the clock. And now with the new clock rule coming in, where after the first down, or if you go, it keeps running until I think the last 2 minutes, 2 minutes of the half, or might have been the quarter. But that favors Alabama well, because if they're going back to that old smash mouth football where they had the 13-yard, 85-yard drive, or 13 plays, 85-yard drive, run 8 minutes off the clock, that just wears the defense out before daggum halftime gets there. So that sets yourself up well for the second half. So that's what we've been missing the last couple of years. We did have a generational talent at quarterback. I understand that, but and we kind of lacked some creativity in the offensive playbook. But the way Alabama has dominated college football in the past is that smash mouth offense, and we're fixing to get back to that, I feel like.
Yeah, but I want to make, look, we can talk about how we want to get back to the physicality. And I want to do that too, because I think that's what suits what our roster looks like right now. But Jake, when you have a Bryce Young, you have to feature Bryce Young.
Absolutely, for sure.
And we did not win championships because we were not physical on offense. We didn't win championships because we couldn't stop people when it mattered.
Right.
Jake, we've averaged more points than anybody in the country over the past 4 seasons. The offense was never the issue. We could not get key stops and key moments to win football games.
Yeah.
You look at the Tennessee game last year, Jake, there's like 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter after we just missed a field goal, and we couldn't stop them from getting in field goal range in 20 seconds.
Yep.
You look back at the LSU game, Jake, our defense played great up until the last series and then in overtime, Jake. And so when you average 45 points a game over 4 seasons, the offense was not the issue. You didn't get key stops on defense, and that's what prevented Alabama from winning championships, Jake. And look, what prevented Alabama from winning the championship in 2021 was the fact that John Mechie and Jamison Williams went down with injuries. That's the only thing that kept them from winning the championship. Alabama was on their way to boat race in Georgia once again in the national championship game. But the injuries to Mechie and the injuries to Jamison Williams, Alabama didn't have enough explosive playmakers because they were all freshmen then. We had one healthy running back in Brian Robinson in the game. We were limited on what we could do in that game, and we still led going into the fourth quarter in that matchup, Jake. Our offense, even despite having some issues, the fact that the defense could not get key stops, that's why we have not won a championship in the last 2 seasons. Let's not forget, Jake, we're only 3 seasons removed from the championship. this idea that Alabama somehow lost who they are, it's not true. It's not true. They reverted to a more finesse style offense because they had the number 1 pick in the NFL draft in Bryce Young at quarterback. That's why. But now you look at the roster and what they look like. You know, the offensive line is bigger, they're more physical. We have 5 running backs who could basically play for anybody else in the country. So that's what we're going to feature. We have a little bit of question mark quarterback, so we're going to rely on a physical rushing attack, a play action passing game, and the defense that's going to be packing physical. And that's what this team is, because that's what the roster looks like at this point.
Yeah, 100%, Stacey. Yeah, Brock says Stacey Preacher dead on point. Christopher says our issue with the defense has been the middle of the line. Hopefully Otis and the 2 Smiths will rectify that.
Okay, and that's true, and I think part of that goes back to the way we look. Who does the defensive line play against every single day in practice? Alabama's offensive line. What has Alabama's offensive line been like the last few years? They've been more finesse, not quite as much hit you in the mouth. So by default, the defensive line just hasn't been quite as physical as they needed to be.
Right.
And I think with the changing of style that we're going to be looking like on the offensive line, then we might see a more physical brand of football from the defensive front as well.
Yeah. Bob says preach.
I want to go back up to a question I saw from, I think, Skip Campbell.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you think Florida State and Clemson will come to the SEC? Of course, conference expansion is – and really, expansion is not even the right word. We're going to have fewer conferences. So it might be – I don't know what we need to call it, but it's not – there's a couple conferences expanding. Everybody else is dwindling away. But
it's gotten stupid here lately.
It's crazy. Yeah. But as far as Florida State and Clemson, obviously it's possible. But, you got to think of what comes into play here when you're talking about conference expansion. TV markets are huge. We already have the University of Florida for the state of Florida, so, getting somebody like Florida State, you're not really going to be introducing a large TV market for college football. And same thing with Clemson. We've already got South Carolina. So the TV market that Clemson would bring would not be huge as well. So I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying you have to keep that part in mind as well. Also, when I think about TV markets, I want to get that Charlotte market. So North Carolina, to me, would be a huge play. It would be a huge get for the SEC because of that Charlotte market that they could bring in, if North Carolina was to join the conference. So, as far as conference expansion for the SEC, it's so hard to tell because Greg Sankey plays everything close to the vest. And look, the SEC doesn't have to go begging for people. People's going to come knocking on the door, and you just kind of got to figure out what suits your conference the best as far as, TV revenue and what those institutions bring to you athletically and academically, because that's important too.
Right. Stacey, me and you have discussed in the past. I don't think it's been on here, but just through text or talking when we hang out and stuff about we would love to go experience the game at Virginia Tech to experience, at night. Just think if we got them in the SEC and Alabama goes up there, there may be a way we could do it.
They play there in a few seasons, Jake. I say it's like 10 years.
That's right.
I think they have a home and away with Virginia Tech scheduled here in about 10 years. So that would be awesome.
That would be, that's the thing. I've been to Alabama. I've not really been to any other stadium, but that's something I'm hoping I get to do here in the future is go experience the other away stadiums. I've always heard the Grove down at Ole Miss is really, really good. They're really friendly down there. Let's see. I'm probably not going to go to the garbage truck convention. I have no desire to go to it. And but just going to other away games and places just to experience their atmosphere, I think it'd be pretty cool.
My son just walked in and was complaining about the internet. If that tells you anything about our struggles of late.
Yeah. I think Bob said that his internet has been messed up here lately. Bob, have you had you got Charter? Because that's what we got. And
ours is actually called Spectrum.
Spectrum, yeah. spectrum. But going to the defensive line real quick, Stacey. I know I forgot who was talked about that. Christopher did, talking about the middle of the line. You know, we talked about the different competitions. I feel like, the defensive line is pretty much set with the board be coming back healthy, and you got Otis and Tim Smith. But there's a lot of good guys that I feel like somebody could get pushed in this fall camp and could lose their job. And I know James Smith is the guy that could probably be the one, but a lot of people don't talk about Payne. Payne, I feel like, could be a stud, on that defensive line this year. And there's just a lot of talent, and how are you going to get them all on the field? And that's a good problem to have as we talk about it. But if we just had to go with one guy on the defensive line who could potentially lose his position, and who would be the guy to replace him, I think it would be Tim Smith losing it, and from James Smith taking it. It'd just be the two Smiths changing out.
See, I mean, I'm not saying that won't happen, but Tim Smith has shown a lot of promise too. He's got to be a more consistent player. But the good thing about the defensive line is you can play 6 or 7 guys the same amount of snaps. And I think that's what you're going to see Alabama do. I mean, you think about the 3 guys you mentioned, Jaheim Otis, Tim Smith, and Justin Aboybe, but James Smith, Jamarian Latham, Damon Payne, I think even Monkel Goodwine on some snaps as well. Looking at a guy to play a true nose guard position in a reserve role, you got a guy like Tim Keenan there. So I think there's 6 to 8 guys that could receive a significant amount of first-team reps for Alabama this fall. And
absolutely,
and I still think there's a lot of development to go on at that position group. And like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, every day in practice, they're going to be going up against an offensive line that's nasty now.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to, pull up their pants, put their big bro britches on and get after it. So I'm looking forward to that competition as well. And look, scrimmages will be starting. I think the first scrimmage is August 12th. The second scrimmage will be August 19th. And then that's just 2 weeks from the start of the football season. So we're going to know more once these scrimmages get underway and we kind of see what these what the lineup looks like a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about, stay on the defensive line real quick, it feels like a make or break year for Roach, on that defensive line as a coach. Just like you said, development hasn't per se been the best, and it just needs to get a little bit better. But I'm with you, Stacey. I feel like Tim Smith feels like he can be that next guy. He can take that next step. And he needs to take that next step, and he's consistently. I mean, he's improved every single year. He needs to be more physical in the trenches now, and take that next step. At Borgby, we feel like he was going to be maybe an early second round type of player before his injuries hit, and then Otis has come in and he's looked really, really well, but. We've not had a dominant person on that defensive line the last couple of seasons. And I feel like that's been a little bit of coaching. Barmore is probably the only one that has been that guy that, kind of lived up to expectation. I feel like Roach needs some of these guys to step up and have a big season, or, he may be out. And we talked about, we love Roach, but it's just the development has not been there, it seems like, the last several seasons.
Yeah, and the truth is, Jake, Tristan mentioned Quentin Williams. I think Quentin Williams is the last first-round defensive lineman we've had drafted. So,
yeah,
that tells you a lot about the state of the defensive line in Tuscaloosa. And look, you're not going to have Quentin Williams every single season. I mean, that's asking way too much. There's only a handful of those guys. I mean, there's a reason he just become one of the highest paid defensive linemen in the league. So, I do think there's room for Alabama to show improvement there on the defensive line. And it is a big season for Coach Roach to kind of prove that he can coach that position and he can develop at the position, because if the defensive line plays well, it just makes everything easier for the rest of the guys on that defense. So I'm looking forward to a more improved defensive line and a defensive line that kind of collapses the pocket, like Ronnie says, and forces the quarterback to make an early decision or take a sack. So that's going to be critical for Alabama in 2023. It's that's a position that I'm really watching throughout fall camp and in the early portion of the season.
Yeah, Jim. He says that Steele knows how to coach this defense. Absolutely. I think if we could not have gotten Jeremy Pruitt, Kevin Steele is the next best option, and we went and took it. And then another thing that Ronnie had said in the chat that you probably won't see a lot of Jay Pope on the field this year, except probably in the special teams packages. But I do like his demeanor and how he plays. I mean, he is the type of guy who will come down and lay you out. He let a couple people out in in A-Day. So, talking about getting more physical, that's the type of guys it seems like we have recruited the last couple of seasons. Seems like we're trying to get that more physicality out of the players. So, I don't know how much of playing time he will get at Alabama, but as long as he's back there knocking heads with people, it's going to make them that much tougher.
Justin says Roach is not only coaching the D-line, Steele will be coaching the entire defense. So our defense will have Steele's attitude. So, yeah, and I think that's the key. Look, Pete Golden, we've talked about him so much on our show. My gosh, we've talked about Pete Golden so much. It's not that he's a bad football coach. I think he has a few faults. He overcoaches, I think. Yeah. He overcoaches, doesn't allow his guys to just play. He let guys get by with a little bit too much. He wasn't on them hard enough. And so and that includes the coaches as well. So I'm with you, John. I think what Steele is going to bring is that attitude. That's a great word for it. Steele has that old school, in your face, hit him in the mouth attitude. And I think that's going to transfer over to the entire defense. And it's just going to make that defense look a little more like that old school Alabama defense that we're used to seeing. I watched the 2014 and the the 2014 and maybe the 2016 SEC championship games last night. My gosh, were they fun to watch, those defenses. I mean, they got after you. They got after you and they hit you in the mouth and you knew they were there for 60 minutes. And that's what I'm looking forward to getting back to on that side of the football. Yeah,
absolutely. One thing I want to make Chef T. I was with you on this. I vividly remember, and I've told, we've talked about this it's a lot. Even after this game, but in the 2019 LSU game, we had just went up and I think it was up maybe like 4 or 5 then. And I was like, okay, no, we were still down by like 4 or 5. I said, all we need to do is get a stop. I think it was like maybe 50 seconds left. I said, we just got to get a stop, get the ball back, because they was not stopping, Smith and 2 in that game. Because, I mean, they just went down the field, moments before and scored a touchdown and get within 5. And then I was like, all we got to do is just stop these 3 running plays and we get the ball back and we win the game. The very first play on the very first down, they ran 12 yards up the middle. And I'm like, well, we're done. I'm like, that's one bad thing that has happened last several seasons under Pete Golden. We just could not stop the run consistently. I think all that's fixing to change. I feel like we're fixing to get dirty again in the trenches, the nastiness, because like me and Stacey said earlier, when your offensive line is popping in the mouth, you've got to either bow up and pop them back, or you're just going to get beat off the line. And I just don't feel like Kevin Steele is going to let his defensive boys get beat off the line. So I feel like we're going to get more physical, in the trenches defensively as well. And we're going to plug some holes with this team this year.
Yep. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. What a awesome way to kind of kick off this first Saturday in August as we get ready for the college football season. And, fall camp's underway. So there's going to be a lot of content rolling out over the next few weeks leading up to the start of the season. So we're going to be here for that.
Yep.
It looks like everybody enjoyed this Saturday morning live show. So I think this is going to be a big success for us here on Tide Talk Live. I hope that you'll join us throughout the college football season as we do this every Saturday morning. Jake, any last comments before we roll out for the day?
Hopefully, we both get better internet soon. That's the only comment I've got, because it's sorry about that, guys. We're probably gonna have technical difficulties. We've got a flash fiber that's been running in our area. It's just taking a little while to get to both of us in our region, so in our area. So hopefully, once that both get here, we'll get it. And from everything that I've been told, there's no issues with it. So cannot wait for that.
Ronnie wants to know when our next show will be. Yeah, we'll probably be back one night this week.
Yeah.
I don't know when. We just have to play our schedule by ear.
Yeah.
Because I got kids and cheer and tumbling and all that kind of stuff. So I just gotta play that by ear, and we'll get together. But we'll let you guys know for sure when we plan to do another show. But we really appreciate everybody tuning in today. This has been a lot of fun. Fall camp, like we said, it's just now firing up, and that means the content will be firing up as well. So looking forward to all that. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and share us with all your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Let us know. Let everybody know how to find us here at Tide Talk Live. Been a lot of fun. Jake, cannot wait to be back in a few days to talk some more Alabama football. But until then, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.